Welcome to the Two and a Half Brothers podcast, where we discuss FPL views, strategy, but most importantly, our monthly league. It's free to enter with monthly prizes, League Cup, and overall winner. We're up to 400 entries. We're aiming for 500 and paying the top five spots every month. So do get involved. Should be good fun. We're open to receiving ideas via our website or TikTok. Just a little bit of housekeeping on manager names. Forrest Gump, Birthday Boy, and Vibes King. Like, give us a chance, man, to do the administration on the league. It's going to be hard to verify names, etc., when we need to make those payments. So please bear that in mind. Tonight's episode is the next installment of our Sunday roast, where we look at one of our drafts and provide feedback and critique. That's all through the lens of our monthly league and the opinions that we formed in producing our drafts. So with no further ado, Jake, you okay?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm doing good. I haven't made any changes as of yet from my team last week, which is pretty shocking. But I think with less than a week to go now, the tinkering will start, and I think I'll be making a few changes before the deadline. It's been interesting seeing your team. It's pretty different to mine, and we'll get that up in a sec and get stuck into it. Um, okay, let me grab your team up.
Look at that work of art. Any initial thoughts?
It's different.
In the sense that there's no Salah?
Yeah, that was the biggest shock for me when you sent it over.
Cool. I can give a quick overview of the general structure if you like. Um,
Yeah, please do.
so I don't have any of the cheaper attacking mids or attacking defenders. Um, I put faith, I think, in the defensive point scoring changes this year. I think that's going to provide a really good baseline, um, kind of week in, week out, that should steady the kind of overall like volatility of the scores each week. You know what it's like when you've got a couple of these cheaper midfielders in, where you're hoping for returns and it's just a string of ones and twos. Um, Similar for the attacking fullbacks, it could be pretty frustrating owning them. Um, I think this is at the moment a much more set and forget team. So with the three at the back, they all score really well on the clearances, blocks, and interceptions. Um, I
Mhm.
shan't go. Let's try and go through them in too much detail, but that's the broad structure. Um, it's the same for Anderson in the midfield. I think he should tick over in terms of CBI. I think he'll be taking some set pieces too. My little punt is on Reinders for City. Looks pretty exciting. I assume he'll get minutes, which is always the risk with these City midfielders. But for £5.5 million, I don't think it's that big of a risk. He's exactly what City need, in my opinion. A lot of the
Mhm.
players sniffing around his position are into their kind of mid 30s now and weren't great last year. Um, yeah, their fixtures are good enough, I think, to warrant that punt. I think he's more exciting than like a Casado or another kind of super defensive mid in there. Lastly, on my goalkeeper, I fancy Chelsea's fixtures to start the season. I don't fancy any of their defenders, and Sanchez is only 5 million. I did the same last year with Raya for Arsenal early on, and that worked out okay. I know Gabriel scored pretty well, I think at the start, but the damage done there wasn't too terminal. Try and keep all the money on the pitch, as it were. So that's how I've structured my defensive players. Do you have any thoughts, Jake? Or
Yeah, I think overall, it seems like you've got pretty solid options in there. Um, Definitely very defensive minded. I don't see any like Nori or Munoz or any of the more attacking fullbacks in there. It looks like you're already going for the defensive contribution points this season. I'm not sure if that makes the game less exciting for you, or just
More
happy ticking
exciting.
over, just happy ticking over with your 2 points week to week.
The thing is, if they're picking those up, the game is probably going to be quite good with
Hmm.
the opposition attacking, right?
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in someone like Virgil, where Liverpool probably have most of the ball. How many defensive contribution points he'll be picking up?
I think in Virgil's case, he can be quite useful in set pieces,
Yeah,
and you'd fancy his clean sheet odds as
yeah,
well on
yeah, that's very
average,
true.
um, and his minutes will be good.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So very solid centre back choices,
Yeah, the hope
minutes, clean
the,
sheets.
the hope is to be able to leave that alone for the first few weeks. Um, I know myself when I own those attacking fullbacks, and it's the same with the cheaper priced midfielders. I always feel the need to try and jump around onto the latest one that's performed well over a week or two. Um, I think that probably made some sense in the past. With these rule changes, I'm much happier to leave these guys to do their thing, even if it's not that exciting. I'm
Yeah,
reading a book at the moment called The Bond King, and
right.
the purpose of having bonds in a portfolio is to stabilize the returns, and I think that's what those guys will do. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
really excited for the new possibilities with that rule change, and I'm leaning into it quite heavily at the start.
But there you go. Treat your team like you treat your bonds. Just set and forget for the season.
I do think if the attacking defenders and the cheaper midfielders don't return attacking points in the first few games, people are going to find themselves 20 or 30 points behind potentially quite quickly. Um,
Mm.
at which point, if you don't hold on to those players, you won't close the gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty excited to see how that
it,
develops in the first few weeks.
yeah. It is an interesting structure, almost sort of 50-50 between those attacking players and defensive players. One player I did want to highlight you selected is Murillo. I
Yeah.
was just comparing him with Milenkovic, the other
Mm-hmm.
Forest centre back. Just wondered if there's any particular reason you selected Murillo. Milenkovic is the same price, and from what I can tell, offers a lot more in terms of attacking. He's a lot more involved in set pieces for Forest, and last season came up with 5 goals, 2 assists as well, which is not bad at all for a centre back.
Yeah, it's just all in on the defenders really. Murillo is the pick of the centre backs for Forest. Like you say, there's not a huge amount in it.
Mm.
I just want to stick with that theme of having
Okay.
the defensive beasts in there. And that's a nice comparison of the heat maps. Um, we're not affiliated in any way with Fantasy Football Scout. Their members area is
Yeah.
just really good for detailed analysis like this.
So there you go. Very defensive-minded centre backs. Should we take a look at the midfield?
Yes, obviously there's no Mo Salah. My high level view on it is that the quality of the signings they've made in attack will see the points shared around. Whereas for City, I think those signings will simply try and feed Haaland. Wirtz has been in my team pretty much throughout. I think his ownership can continue to tick higher. There are podcasts and articles continuing to back him that wasn't necessarily the case a few weeks ago. I think he's played quite well pre-season, apparently. Um, we said in previous podcasts that he's probably going to be too cheap at 8.5, and it just seems like a real no-brainer to start with him and to afford Haaland. The drafts I've seen with Salah, Palmer, and Haaland just look really thin, pretty much everywhere else. There are one or two half decent ones, particularly from people in our chat who are following us on TikTok. Yeah, at the moment, I'm really backing City to improve and for Haaland to reap the most benefit there.
Yeah, yeah, on but I think you're right. He's looked great preseason, and I'm sure they will share those points around. I still fancy Salah as the main man. I still think he'll pick up assists and goals. I'm just not sure if Verts can cover him, especially coming to the Prem. I like to try and stick on sort of more Prem proven players, just to sort of reassure myself going into the season that they're going to start off well. But like you say, if he is cheap at 8.5 mil, I imagine people will start flocking to him.
Yeah, it's not really a coverage thing. It's more of a value proposition. Um, I think if you were to double up with Liverpool midfield that wasn't Salah, that didn't
Mm,
include Salah, I think that would be an effort to cover him. I think with Verts, it's a bit of a different case.
yeah.
But I'm pretty stuck on this. So this structure shouldn't change. And I know once we get to Friday night near the deadline, there'll be some temptation. Um, but I'm quite firm on this.
Cool. Anderson, again, another one of the cheap defending players. Probably not too much to sell him. He had 2 XG last season, which is lower than both of our centre backs, which is always interesting. But again,
Yeah,
yeah, I think you're right.
he's going to be someone that I'm happy to rotate in and out. It won't feel like a dilemma. Whereas when you have all of the cheap midfield attackers, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a burden rotating them in and out. You can see I've got Strand Larson on the bench.
Yeah,
I'd just be happy to rotate between him, Anderson, and Reinders, depending on the fixture.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it does look like quite a strong bench, and be interesting to see how their fixtures compare as to when you'll swap players in and out. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think it does seem like a good strategy.
not too much to say on Palmer really. Started last season really well, dropped off
Mm,
in the second half. I think their signings will reinvigorate him this season. You can see I've doubled up with Pedro. I don't expect Pedro to necessarily get 90 minutes each week, even at the start of the season. I think the lap is really good. I think it'll be dependent on who they're playing, but Pedro will be the main man at the start. Um, I think those two combined potentially quite exciting. Chelsea's fixtures are great. I'm surprised that I've gradually shifted to the Chelsea triple up at the start
I
of the season. Um,
yeah,
I've only recently put João Pedro in. I think having one of the 6.5s in Strand Larson feels like enough 6.5 strikers for me. Um, whereas João Pedro, I'll be happy to leave in for the first 4 or 5 weeks. I did have Raul in there alongside Strand Larson, and I can already see that it would be worth trying to find that extra million to upgrade to João Pedro. Again, at 7.5 million, it's hard to make too much of an error. I feel.
mm,
I think it's worth going for those fixtures and the improved team that he's going to be playing in. Um, Palmer's also captainable, although I'll be
mm.
looking to keep it on Haaland for the majority. It's the same for Verts. I imagine he'll be captainable at some point too. So I don't feel that the team is lacking at the moment. Any view on the triple up?
It's yeah, it's an interesting approach. I see you've almost come full circle on João Pedro selection from the initial draft. You could quite anti Pedro and his injury status, but it looks like you've come around. I think it's probably a good pick. I can see him and Palmer doubling up quite nicely in terms of goals and assists between them. Again, like you say, I think it is just a potential minutes risk as to who they're playing if Pedro or Delap gets more minutes. But even in 60, 70 minutes with Pedro, you can still get a goal and assist. So I don't think it's too risky there.
Yeah, he's got a bit of swagger, hasn't he? He's like he reminds me of Kuna a little bit. He's got a
Hmm.
little bit of swagger that I think Chelsea need.
Have you factored in his yellow and red cards on your overall points?
And no, but like I say, he's tempestuous, isn't he? He's got a little bit of swagger about him. And
Yeah.
we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think the team is hopefully set up well enough that if we do run into any issues there, then we can rotate easily
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. I think he would be great at Chelsea. He looked great in the Club World Cup in the few games that he
That's
did
it.
play.
If he'd have been 9 million like Gyökeres, maybe I'd be thinking twice.
Yeah.
But 7.5, I don't think it's going to be that big of a mistake if it is a mistake at all.
No, not at all. On to Rodgers. Obviously, the time we're recording this, it's come out that he could potentially be injured following his preseason game with Villa.
The
If that
latest
is the
the latest news is it's not too severe. They're
okay,
expecting him available for game week 1, but obviously one to watch.
that's reassuring. But yeah, if he is injured, would that change your team much? Would you be looking to get Watkins in instead, or potentially Marlon, who's a bit cheaper?
Definitely not Marlon. Um, I don't think so on Watkins. I think no Rogers would reduce Watkins' appeal for me.
Mm,
I'd also need to restructure the team quite heavily. I'd need to find, I think,
yeah,
1.5 million out of the team to upgrade, like a Pedro, for example. And I'm
yeah,
really happy with it as is. If he is injured, I would be tempted just to play Strand Larsen perhaps against City. They can be
yeah,
quite accommodating at the back sometimes. So,
yeah,
yeah, the fixtures are really good for Villa at the start. Even that Newcastle game for the opener has been really lively the past few years. I do find Rodgers' performances quite stodgy sometimes, and I can find him quite frustrating to
mm,
own. There's nothing wrong with his kind of productivity last year. I think he's a significant upgrade, most importantly, on players like Mitoma and some of the other
mhm,
6.5 attacking midfielders. And that's partly why I squeezed another 500,000 from somewhere. I can't remember where I pulled it from now. Possibly going down to 5.5 in Rangers from a
mm.
6.5. I put 500,000 of that into Rodgers. I think he'll have another strong season and we'll see his price increase next year. So fingers crossed he's fit. But like I say, not without trepidation for me. I've struggled to own him in the past. Um, yeah, the fixtures are there and the returns from last year, so happy with it. I don't think he'll move out of my team. He's another one that I don't feel like it's going to be a big error if if he doesn't hit the ground running at the start of the season for 7 million, and it gives me plenty of
Yeah,
downward flexibility too.
yeah, I think that extra 500,000, like you say, between the 6.5 and 7 to Rogers, is massive in terms of what he can offer you. Again, I think he'll get better this season than he did last season. And 7 mil is cheap, and like you say, he probably will increase next year if he keeps up similar output.
We've touched on Reinders. I think his price point and what he'll bring to Man City is is worth a go, even if it's a minute's risk. Um, I'd be happy to rotate him, as I said, with any of the bench players and Anderson.
Yeah, I think again he's another one who could be a steal at 5.5. When I was reading up on him, despite playing as a sort of defensive mid, he seems to play as a sort of box to box midfielder. At least at AC Milan, had 15 goals, 5 assists last season. So it's interesting, even though he's defensively based, he still gets those goals and assists. If he can do that at 5.5 million in the Premier League and rack up defensive contribution points, he could
Yeah,
get quite a few
I
good
had a
goals.
I had a look on the City forum, and they're raving about him. I know it's only pre-season, but
Mm,
yeah, quite excited to own him. He's
yeah,
he's not in many teams at the moment. I forget the commenter on our TikTok that put me onto him, so thank you for that. I'll find it and shout it out in the comments. Um, yeah, I think that midfield is is pretty exciting to start the season with. We've touched on Haaland. I'd like to double up there. Did you have any questions about either of those gems or having City players at all? I see quite a few drafts with none, or I see a Marmouche.
Yeah, I think you'd be a very brave person to go without any City players going into these first few game weeks. They spent quite a bit, and like you said, I think they were massively improved this season. Pep looked pretty frustrated at the end of last year, and I can't see him going through another season of that. I think they could be quite scary to start off with, especially with
Yeah,
Haaland coming back to full fitness.
yeah. I feel like Haaland is one of the only players now in the league that can go and score four in in a game. And
Yeah.
obviously Salah is quality enough, but
Mm,
the players they've signed maybe detract from that. So yeah, my bet is on Haaland
yeah.
for the time being. Um, okay, I'll quickly touch on my bench. Strand Larson, I've got in for his monster finishing qualities. I know he's got City first, hence he's on the bench, but that might change. He's like his shot accuracy is top of the pops. I think he'll be the main man at Wolves now. Obviously, with Kuna gone, so he might pick up penalties. Yeah, it's mostly a question of how good we think Wolves will be. I'm not too worried about that for 6.5 million. I think he's
Mm,
plenty good enough to to include at the start of the season. Anderson's another CBI point monster, 4.5 million. Fulham are pretty patchy at the back. Um, I won't mind rotating him in and out. And then everybody's favourite is E Steve lurking at the back of my bench. The one thing I'll be watching there is sales and price drops. He's not going to feature in my. I know Burnley have got okay fixtures, haven't they?
yeah, I
But
think they're okay
he's
to start off.
yeah he's not going to get a look um,
Mm,
in that team in the way I want to structure things at the start of the year. So yeah, at the moment I feel like I won't make too many changes unless we get news
mm.
that alters my outlook. Um, yeah, brave or stupid to go without Salah.
Um, I think stupid. I just think the Liverpool team is phenomenal. I don't think they'll detract too much from his output. If anything, increase the sort of out the value he gets. We saw him last season putting plenty of crosses into the box. For Nunes and other players that went missed, so he could have got even higher points last season. If they do get Isaac on the end of those as well, I think they could be quite scary.
Yeah, that's one thing I have got an eye on is Isaac going to Liverpool. It's been a bit of a mess this summer so far for Newcastle.
Mm,
How
yeah,
that'll affect him if he does move, I don't
yeah,
know. Um, that would possibly make me reconsider the team if he does go to Liverpool. Try and find the funds to upgrade maybe João Pedro to Isaac.
yeah. I think Isaac coming in would be pretty good cover. Liverpool have also just sold Nunes, which makes me more inclined that they are going to get Isaac.
Yeah, Isaac is not cover. Isaac's numbers were as good as Haaland's last year.
Oh
He'd
yeah.
be in there on his own merit. It wouldn't be to cover Salah. Like Verts is, he's in there
Hmm.
on merit, albeit being new to the Premier League.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, I think it is a pretty solid team. I do like the blend of players that you've got between the attacking and defensive turns. It's making me slightly worried about not owning Haaland. Again, I think it's one or the other. Um, I guess we just have to see how it plays out. Last season, we saw Salah go off after I think 6 or 7 game weeks, and I took too long to switch to him. So I don't want to make that mistake this season.
Yeah, fair enough. Just one last question, I guess. I'm seeing lots of bench boosts in the community. Would you bench boost this? Now, I personally don't understand the bench boost game week one narrative, other than for people to have a bit of a punt and to produce content on. I don't get it at all. My players are, I think, good enough to bench boost in week one, but it's not something I'll be doing. Would you have a go at that?
For me, I think I've mentioned before, I think bench boosting game week one is just a madness. I can see the appeal of it. Get it out of the way. You've almost got your free team to select, build a strong bench boost. But then I'm not sure what the plan is after that. Are you going to transfer the players out, or I guess wild card game week two? I think it'll be much more effective to wild card later in the game once we get a bit more of an idea of the players. Potentially find out some good cheaper options as well to fit in our team, and yeah, wild card and then bench boost once we have more of an idea of
Yeah,
who to get in.
I think in our monthly league format as well, that bench boost can be quite handy towards the end of the month if it's tied to the top
Yeah.
and you're looking to win that month. So our league format differs slightly from kind of the mainstream commentary, I guess, on the bench boost. But
Yeah.
I will keep you posted on my progress. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in and has joined the league. Do give us a follow and a like and all that stuff. Anything else from you, Jake?
No, I think that's it. See how we go in the coming game weeks. Whether the defensive returns will be worth it, or whether my more attacking centre backs and midfielders will sort of reap the rewards with their returns.
Yeah, never in
It'll be
doubt.
an interesting battle to watch, I think. But yeah,
Cool.
that's all from me. Thank
Cool.
you for tuning in.
We'll leave it there. See you next time.